Welcome to Waterford Wesleyan Church Online. I'm Pastor Paul, and I'm glad you joined us here today. I have one quick announcement for you, and that is this. If you have a prayer request or a praise that you want to share or have somebody praying along with you, I want to encourage you to do this. Text the word PRAY, P-R-A-Y, to 518-223-8662. That prayer request or that praise comes directly to Pastor Matt and myself, and that way we can be praying with you, praying for you, or just celebrating what God is doing in your life. It's a great way for us to stay connected as a community and to know that you have others praising God with you or praying to God for you. So, anyway, all that behind us now, I want to get right into Pastor Matt's message. So here he is, Pastor Matt.
Happy Mother's Day. Today's our Mother's Day message, and so we're going to talk about moms today. Now, I want to talk about some moms of the Bible, but we're not going to talk about Eve, the mother of humanity. We're not going to talk about Mary, the mother of Christ, and we're not going to talk about Sarah, necessarily, the mother of the Hebrew nation. But we're going to talk about three moms. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't. Maybe this is going to be the first time that you've heard about them, but we're going to talk about three moms that I think that you might be able to recognize and empathize with, whether you're a mom or not. Whether you are a mom or you just simply have a mom. Maybe you'll be able to recognize and empathize with these three moms that we're going to speak about from the Bible, from the biblical text. But before we get into that, I just want to recognize something here on Mother's Day, and it's this. Not all mothers are built the same. And what I mean by that is not every mom comes into motherhood and under the same circumstances, with the same personality, with the same qualities. Each mom is built specific and individual, just like everybody else. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, here's the thing. Not every child, not every child of those moms has the same relationship with their mom as maybe you have. So today, I want to talk about three different types of mom. Three different types of mother in the Bible that maybe you can recognize with maybe one, maybe two, maybe all three of them. So here we go. Our first mom that we're going to discuss is in the book of Exodus, chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. And that is Jochebed. Now, maybe that name you don't recognize, but you do know her sons. If you know anything about the Bible, you do know her sons, and her sons are Moses and Aaron. Moses, the great man of the Old Testament, a pillar of the faith, the guy that we recognize as writing the Pentateuch, the guy who freed the Hebrews from Egyptian slavery, the guy that brought down the Ten Commandments and the law from Mount Sinai, the guy that led the Hebrews to the Promised Land, that Moses would not be the man he was without his mom. So today, we're going to talk about his mom, Jochebed. Here we go. This is Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Now, a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me. I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him, and when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Now, a little backstory. The Hebrew nation was under slavery of the Egyptians. So the Egyptians felt so threatened by the Hebrews that they made a rule that they were going to kill the firstborn son of Hebrew families so that they could dwindle the warrior class of the Hebrews. And so Moses, being born a male, falls within that category. So he was kind of in danger. Not necessarily the greatest situation to be raising a child in. But let's not focus on Moses for too long. Let's focus on Jochebed. So, it says, Jochebed saw that he was a fine child. In fact, in Hebrews 11:23, it says this. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Jochebed, understanding that the son that she had was special, understanding that the son that she had was going to be used by God, risked her life and the life of her family to be able to live in faith to God. And maybe this is you. Maybe this is you as a mom, understanding that your child is loved and beloved by God and wanting to raise him or her in the faith, and yet we kind of live in a world that's not really conducive to that. Now, I could go on a whole rant about social media or TikTok, whatever it is, just things that are trying to distract our children. And you could empathize with that. But there's many things that are trying to keep our kids, the forces of evil in this world, trying to keep our kids and adults from following the path set before them by God. But you as moms, just like Jochebed, understand that your kid is loved. Understand that your child is loved by God and wants to be raised up like Moses in the faith. Now, I really hope that you're not sending your kid down the river, but there are sacrifices that you know that you are making as you raise your child in faith. And so today, if you're that mom, if you're Jochebed, understanding that your kid is beloved by God, understanding that there are sacrifices that need to be made in order to raise them to be children of faith, to be adults of faith, this Mother's Day is for you. Now, our second mom, maybe you know this mom, maybe you don't know this mom, but this mom, her name is Hagar. Now, if you do know this story, you understand that Hagar is not necessarily a happy story, and that's very true, and that's okay. Not every mother's story is a happy story. In fact, last week we had a crisis pregnancy center come in. Their name is Alpha Pregnancy Center, and they are an amazing ministry here in the 518 area. And they came and talked about a lot of moms that they counsel in their new journey into motherhood. And a lot of those people would empathize. A lot of those mothers would empathize with Hagar. So let's read the story of Hagar together. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? Running away from my mistress Sarai, she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. The angel of the Lord said to her, you are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be raised against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility towards all his brothers. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Beer Lahai Roi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. Now, some backstory into Hagar's story here is Hagar is the slave to Sarai and Abram. And if you know the story of Sarai and Abram, they've been promised that they are going to give birth to a nation. But here's the problem. Sarai and Abram are old. They're past the age of bearing children. And they're beginning to get desperate. And instead of having faith in the Lord that he's going to fulfill the promise that he's given them, they take matters into their own hand and they end up abusing Hagar. Sarai offers Hagar to her husband to sleep with her, to conceive through her. And then when she's pregnant, Sarai gets jealous and begins abusing and accosting her. And so Hagar runs, and that's where we meet her in the desert. Now I have to imagine Hagar probably felt a few things. Probably demeaned, abused, lost, alone, definitely struggling. And she was literally lost along that road and found by the Lord. Now, this story may seem exceptional, but this is, within reason, this is a story that a lot of mothers face, where they end up pregnant without really any way to move forward. They struggle, they're lost, maybe they're alone. And you, just like Hagar, are seen and beloved by God. Did you catch it there at the end? She says, you are the God that sees me. Now, the Lord could have said, I'm going to give you all the money in the world to take care of this kid. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a house. I'm going to give you food. I'm going to give you all these things. But that's not what he said. No, he said, I see you. The Lord understands and empathizes with your pain. And that is what meant the world to her. And as the church, as the hands and feet of God here on earth today, we see you as well. Maybe this is your story. Maybe this is your story now. Maybe this is your story in the past. Or maybe you know someone who's going through this very struggle. I encourage you, as we celebrate Mother's Day, to say, hey, I see you. I empathize with you, and I am here to help and to walk with you through what you're going through. Just like the Lord did with Hagar. Hagar felt alone. She felt like she was struggling. She felt like she was lost. And the Lord said, I love you. I see you. And we can do the same for the Hagars in our lives. So today, Mother's Day, we celebrate and we walk alongside and we see you. Now, our third mom is a mom that I didn't even know was in the Bible. In fact, I've read over this verse, I don't know, probably 10 a dozen times, and I never really noticed it. And so I'm gonna ask you to follow along with me because it's kind of a rabbit trail we have to go down to get to it, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. And we're going to talk about a mom who's not really a mom to the person we're talking about, but kind of an adoptive mom. Many of you have this in your life where they're not mom by blood, but they're your mom. You know what I'm talking about. The mom that took you in when you were lost. The mom that took you in when your friends brought you over and you were just kind of there all the time and you ate their food and they really wanted to write you off on their taxes, but they kind of raised you to who you are today. I have lots of moms like that in my life. And I celebrate them today on Mother's Day. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here is the mom in Romans, a mom to Paul. Romans 16:13 says this, Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother, who has been a mother to me too. Now, who is this mom? Who is this mom, the mother of Rufus, who the Lord has anointed, who has chosen? Well, here we go. We got to go all the way back to Mark to figure that out. So here we go. This is Mark chapter 15, verse 21. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. Now, in the crucifixion story that we just went over in the Easter season, as Jesus was carrying the cross up to the mount, up to Golgotha, he was obviously tired. He was beaten. He was bloody, and he couldn't carry the cross. So they took Simon the Cyrene to carry the cross for him. And it says that he was just traveling in from the country. So by all accounts, we didn't know that Simon knew Jesus at all. And yet, here's what happened. Simon the Cyrene comes and carries the cross. He's the father of Rufus and the wife of this mother of Paul. And here's what I imagine happens. He goes home with such a story of faith as he witnesses the crucifixion, that his whole family comes to faith. And we kind of get the idea that this is what happens because in the Romans verse it says that Rufus was chosen. That's pretty high praise for somebody. And it's church tradition to understand that this Rufus and that Rufus are the same Rufus, which means that that mother is Simon of Cyrene's wife. And so that part of the story of Mark brings us to Paul's Damascus story. As he's walking between Jerusalem and Damascus, he has a come to Christ moment, literally, where he's knocked on his butt off of his horse and Christ comes to him and he has a come to faith moment. And then there's a period of time between that moment and when he starts his ministry, a couple years, where he's got to learn what it means to be a Christian. Right? A little bit of on-the-job training. He's got to learn what it means to be a Christian before he goes and can spread the gospel. And that's where Simon of Cyrene's wife comes into play, raising him in the faith. There's no reason for them to have known each other beforehand. So this mom adopts Paul, raises him in the faith, and now we have the great apostle Paul that we know and love today. The apostle Paul that was such an evangelist that the church would not look anything like it does today without God's work in this man. And we have this mother to thank for that. So maybe this is you. Maybe you don't have any kids of your own, or maybe you do and you just are adopting all of your kids' friends. This Mother's Day is for you because you are making such a difference in people's lives. I can speak from personal experience. I have plenty of moms in my life that have raised me that aren't moms by blood, but are moms in my heart. And I'm sure that you can relate to that. So, as we wrap this up, maybe you're Jochebed, just trying to raise your children in the faith up against insurmountable odds, and yet you still put your faith in Christ. This Mother's Day is for you. Or maybe you're Hagar. Maybe your coming to being a mother story is less than desirable. Maybe you put yourselves in situations, or maybe situations were put upon you and now you're responsible and now you're a mother. Know that God sees you where you are and loves you, and so do we. This Mother's Day is for you. Or maybe you're Paul's adoptive mother. Maybe you don't have any kids of your own, or maybe you do, but you've adopted people, helped raise them in the faith, helped raise them to who they are today. This Mother's Day is for you. So, today, I encourage you, think of all the moms in your life, biological or not, the people that have raised you, and say, I love you. Happy Mother's Day. The Lord sees you, and so do I.